Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Roxy Darling and I make videos of things I create. In this video, I will be turning this figurine into an elf queen. This is the second video and final video of this series. In the first video, I show how I sculpted the figurine using armature wire, polymer clay, and in some places, epoxy sculpt. And to round out that first video, I painted the figurine with about 3 layers of gesso used as a primer. In this video, I will be showing you how I completed her body, face-up, garment, and wig. Here you see me painting her body. This is the first layer of matte acrylic paint. I painted her body, I think, with about 2 or 3 layers of matte acrylic before I started the body blushing. I started blushing her body with a peachy color, and then you'll see me go in after that with a more magenta tone. These are fantastical colors, and I chose that because I wanted her body to look more plant-like than human-like. The plant I was thinking about was a succulent I saw that had a green base, and the tips of each little pointy leaf was kind of a purpley color, and so I just kind of leaned into the plant feel of it. It does look rather fantastical at the moment, and it's about to look even more fantastical because I'm going to add a dusting of golden luster dust, and then I'm going to seal it with a few layers of Mr. Super Clear, and then I'll start the face up. After a few layers of matte acrylic, the same that I did her body, I'm going to use the same colors that I used the body blushing, so the peach and the kind of magenta color, and then I'm going to start doing the contours with a darker green tone. I forgot to pierce her ears before I attached them to her head, so I grabbed a little hand drill and I pierced each ear, and I'll pierce the other one off camera, but you get the idea. And you can see here that I started adding a dark pinky purple to her lips, and just ignore that. I end up going with a different lip color later on in the piece. So yeah, heads up. I'm going to make a quick PSA for anyone who works with chalk pastels or anything like watercolor pencils. With this piece, I had a difficult time getting my greens to look good. Some greens I would put on here, like this particular pale green, would look almost yellow. I put another green around her eyes and it turned out looking rather blue, and then another green on her eyebrows, and it looked almost like a very yellow green. So what you're going to see is me really trying to balance out these different greens because they came out looking so different on this skin tone than originally expected. So just a heads up, if you work with fantasy skin tones, it's going to be a balance of figuring out how they look not only in the pan or in the pencil, how they look once you put them over another color. You can see I changed the color of her lip to more of the peachy color. I did that because due to her green skin tone and purple eyes, the purple lips was giving more Disney villain than Elf Queen. So I switched it to the peach tone, and then I'll grab the darker pink color just to add some dimension. After giving her a dusting of golden luster dust and spraying it with a few layers of Mr. Super Clear, I grabbed my golden fluid acrylics and gave her a bright metallic gold eyelid, which is just to continue the royal vibes. I gave her some catch lights, and now to do my favorite part, and that is to gloss the eyes and lips. It really does bring them to life. After adding a little bit of golden powder to the glossy top coat of her lips, it's time to start painting her bodice. I decided I wanted it to be painted rather than sculpted on, just to give it almost like a tattoo effect. Yeah, but I just continued using the same golden fluid acrylics to just kind of map out general areas where I wanted the bodice to cover. And then I just kind of did everything intuitively. I have mentioned in previous videos, I'm not really one for sketching. I did a little bit of sketching, but then I just deviate from it anyway. So you'll see me painting some of it, and then later on it might be a little different. And that's the joy of painting with acrylics. As soon as it dries, you can paint right over it and change it. It's not like it's set in stone. But yeah, and it looks like I'm doing this really easy and quickly because I filmed it in a time lapse, but my hands were shaking and it was a little bit stressful, but as I kept painting, I got into the groove and I figured out the ratio of paint to water, and I ended up having a lot of fun with this. And then I continued down the thighs, front and back, and onto the calves as well with the kind of lacy boudoir design. This is what she's looking like so far. I did all the details on the front, and then I used a similar design to carry that onto the back as well. And I just painted her booty just completely solid gold because that's going to be covered up pretty much completely, so I didn't spend time mapping out any sort of design. And then I am going to give her arm and forearm bands. I am creating these out of epoxy sculpt. One, because I don't want to put her back in the oven, and two, I'm going to have some jewelry hanging from these. So I embed some jump rings into the epoxy sculpt before it cures, and then I add a little bit of glue once it is cured just to secure it. That way the jewelry will be able to hang and not break off. I add a layer of gesso and let it dry before I go back in and paint them gold. And that while they're drying, I went in and with the same brass that I did a wash on the shoes a little bit ago, I'm going to use that same brass color and add some just some dimension details. And you can see my cat in the background, so say hello to her. And if you love cats, hit the like button down below. I love it when I see other people's cats in their videos. It makes me happy. And so I always feel grateful when my cat jumps in frame. She's usually down by my feet. So now I am painting the base a dark green just to begin with. I will end up adding a lot to the base actually, but yeah, just a few coats of dark green, and then I'm going to start with the garment. I cut a rectangle out of some polyester chiffon, ironed it, and then to do the hem I'm going to just hand stitch a little row, and then once that's done I'm going to cut really close to that stitch that I just made, and then after that's cut I'm going to just fold it over, iron it down again, and then run another very thin hand stitch across, I would say, the top and the sides of the kind of rectangular shape that I'm doing. For the top seam, I am folding it over one more time and ironing it down and just doing a really quick whip stitch on there because I'm going to run a string through and to gather it up. I just decided I was going to do that rather than just gather it up at the top. It just, in my mind, it seemed to be a better idea. I don't know if it really is in theory, but I did it. And then I put it on the body and just kind of smushed it all around. And once I got it to the squishiness or the scrunchiness that I wanted it, I just adhered it with some hot glue. And this is what she's looking like so far. Now to start working on the appliques, I made some little squiggles out of felt and sewed them onto a piece of fabric and then put another piece of fabric on top, only because they really didn't match and I didn't want to go buy more green felt for this project. I then started embroidering moss. I did the same stitch repetitively. Pretty much, yeah, all over. The only thing that changed was the thickness of the string. I used yarn for the largest and one string of embroidery floss for the smallest of thicknesses. And here's the one stitch that I did. Fold it over, and then you put it right next to where you came through, and then you pull it a little taut, and then you pull the needle all the way through very slowly, because you don't want it to knot, kind of like it does about right here. It starts to knot, and then I just gently pull it through, and I did that several hundred times. So this is the palette of sparkles that I'm going to add because I want my moss to be magical. And the circular sunburst kind of moss piece you saw me do, that was going to be for the waist. So these half round ones are going to be for the bottom of the skirt, and the sunbursty one is going to be cut out and wrapped around the waist. You'll see that in a minute. Before I cut the waist piece completely out, I did add some fray check around the embroidery because I don't want any of that embroidery coming undone. I had originally planned to keep that waist fabric all the way on, but it was just too clunky. And so I cut all of it off and started pinning just the embroidery part of the waist piece on there, and just kind of finagled it around till it looked like I want it. And this is what it's looking like with all the appliques just placed on there so far. That way you get an idea of the direction that I'm going. And once I saw I had the waist piece on there, I realized it really felt disjointed from the rest of the body. So I took a break from working on the skirt and started just kind of connecting the bodice to the skirt. And I am just stippling on the darkest of greens with the same acrylic paint that I have been using. And then so I start off with the darkest gray, and I'm just kind of following the sides of her shape and giving, I want a lot of the gold work to still show through, but I also want it to look like it's getting covered with greenery, that it's just growing all over her, but I also want it to keep the same shape of an actual garment. And once I get that down, I will switch to a lighter shade. I think I do a total of 3 shades of green from darkest to lightest on the top part of the piece. These cute little buddies are sequins and beads that I glued together to be little accessories to her little skirt. And then I decided to add back the fabric that I cut off from the waist area. And so I cut them into little leaf shapes and burnt the edges so they'd look a little bit more natural. And then I ironed a vein down the middle just to give it a little bit of more of a leaf shape. I pinned them to the waist, and once I figured out about where that I wanted them, I hand sewed them on. I did that because I was afraid to get glue from the glue gun on the chiffon skirt, so better safe than sorry. I just hand sewed it on real quick. Once those were sewn on, I added some Spanish moss underneath those little leaf shapes, and then I started gluing on the little accessories, just pretty much where I thought they should go. And I'm trying to do kind of more at the top and more at the bottom, and then it kind of just fade a little bit into the middle of the skirt. But I probably went a little overboard, but it's not like I've not gone overboard with detail before. And look at these little cute leaves I made out of some frayed fabric. I was really proud of myself for that. I then switched from working on the skirt to the base. I just moved the skirt over a little bit. I'm going to try to blend the moss off the skirt onto the base. So I'm going in with the same technique I did with the bodice and same colors. And then I'm going in with some diorama shrubbery. and gluing that on. Off camera, I do paint it the same colors to blend in with the actual like applique moss, but yeah, I just did it off camera because I think you get the idea. But I just kind of glued it all on and just kind of built up texture, and then all the way around. And I wanted the skirt to look like it was growing out of the ground. And I even started putting some of the moss inside and underneath the skirt, just, for extra detail and everything. And so now it's time to start making her wig. I grabbed some stretchy net material and then mixed a little bit of the same paint that I've been using with some Mod Podge, and then painted about 4 layers of that onto the fabric and then just cut it off. I did mark the back of the little wig cap before I cut it all completely off, and then I put it on my little like mock head and marked where I was going to trim the cap. I did trim the cap a little bit more than I expected, but it'll work. I picked 2 greens to use as my hair, and this is how I cut and attached them to little chopsticks. I brushed them out with a pet brush. I forgot to get film of that because I did it watching TV. And then I just used a flat iron to flatten it and get it kind of silky looking to make the wefts. I last time I used PVA glue and it was a little brittle, so this time I decided to use fabric glue so it would remain waterproof and flexible, and I think I'm going to continue doing that in the future. And then I just kept gluing all the wefts around the edges. I glued them mostly up the back, and then I forgot to get film, but I glued them across the front as well. And because I'm going to do a half up, half down, I kept some fringe around the face and around the ears, and then I flipped some back, spritzed it down, and put a little hairnet on it and let it dry overnight. And so yeah, you can see I'm about to start sectioning it to do a half up, half down. But before I style it, I'm going to take my miniature curling iron and curl all the hair. So I'm going to curl the fringe in the front, ears, and back. I'm going to curl all of those under, and then the top part around the top part of the head, I'm curling it back. And then once everything is curled, I'm just going to go and separate all the curls and just kind of, twist them out a little bit before I start styling. Once I got the top twisted and pinned back, I went in and started cutting a curtain bang. I cut it down at an angle, starting from the middle and moving down, and then I did the same thing to the other side. And once I got it to the length that I liked it, I just spritzed it down with some plain water and then just combed and styled it and then let it dry so it would set at that style. And once I got all my base styling where it was, I just spritzed it down with some hairspray and trimmed extra flyaways, and then it was time to add jewelry to the hair, jewelry to the body of the piece, and she would be completed. So at this point, I'm just going to show you what the front looks like, and then I'll meet you at final looks. And here she is. Thank you so much for those who have stuck around to the end. I hope you enjoyed this piece. I hope you got some education, entertainment, or some sort of value. So hit the like button if you liked it, share, subscribe, all that jazz. And I do have some more dolls in mind to make, actually a lot more. So please stick around, and until then, I'll see you again. Bye-bye.